Good evening and welcome to Gator's Garage, the home of all things historical and science fiction gaming in and around the great city of Savannah, Georgia. We have with us tonight a bit of a star, Mr. Joshua Qualtieri, the author of the Quors world. And we're going to have a little conversation with him tonight about who the Quar are and who they were, who they are, and where they're going. And we'll kind of see where the conversation takes us. I got exposed to the Quar, oh my soul, years ago and kind of followed their lore for a long time. And then really got into it when Wargames Atlantic began publishing their stuff. But we'll find out more about that as we get in. Before we get too deep, of course, we have with us our friend Josh Qualtieri. And be sure you do the YouTube things, smash that like button, subscribe if you're not subscribed so you can keep up with all the goings on because we do try and keep it interesting. And share the recording with your friends. Share it with your enemies. Just share it. We want to kind of build the Gator clan and get the word out of all the cool games that the Gator's promoting. We kind of have a unique niche in the hobby, and glad you guys are giving us some of your time. Josh, welcome to the program, and tell us a little bit about yourself.
Thanks for having me. A little bit about myself. My name is Josh. I am 6 feet, 220 pounds. No, I'm not that heavy. I don't know how heavy I am. I don't know. There's maybe a lot or maybe not much to tell. So
there you go. Give us the not much.
The not much. I don't know. I make Quar. I make models now for a living. After many years of working for other folks, I am totally self-employed, making cool stuff.
That is many of our dreams. Let me tell you, that's fantastic.
Yes.
I did take some time when you do what?
I'm quite lucky. I know that.
Yes. Yeah, that's a blessing. I did take some time when you first launched, when the Quors box set launched. I think there was an interview. Someone interviewed you, and you started drawing the Quar back when you were like in elementary school or middle school.
Yep, I was. Yeah. My best recollection, my mom's best recollection, I was probably around 8 years old. I used to draw a bunch of different things, and I drew a lot of the Quar. Eventually, I started drawing a lot of the Quar, and they were inspired by Dr. Seuss and the Dark Crystal, some things I was obsessed with when I was a child. Yeah, so I've been doing something with the Quar since I was 8 years old, like 40 something years ago. I'm 50 now, so for 42 years, the Quar have been in my life to some extent.
That is absolutely awesome. And so, what was the first Quar as a game? Was that the 15 millimeter game, or the 28?
Yeah, it was 28. The first Quar. I'm bad with dates, by the way. The first Quar was Rifle Merrick. It was metal. It was sculpted by Aaron Brown from New Zealand, and that was 2006 maybe. Was the first metal one, and then kind of took off from there. That was super popular. We did a few more for the Crusaders, and then we tried another faction, and I started taking them to local conventions here in the Bay Area, California. And the two types of people would walk up. One would walk up and say, "These are awesome, I want them," and the other would say, "These are awesome, but what rules are they for?" And there were no rules. And so a good friend of mine, Anthony, who I played miniatures games with, we're like, "Hey, you want to write a miniatures game for the Quar?" And we did, and that was the first This Quars War. That was probably 2008 or 9. And so
that's about the time I saw him. Yeah.
So it's been about that long.
Fantastic. Hey, so you mentioned that you played war games. What was your first war game?
So when I was born, my dad was old school Hex Encounter, Avalon Hill, FBI Wargamer.
Yes.
So I played those early on. I don't know what the first thing I played properly is, but I do know my first game was Squad Leader when I was probably 4 or 5. And what we would do is we would actually hold the counters with our fingers and mash them together, and whoever's counter let go was dead. And so that's how we. I was like 4 or 5. But when I was 6 or 7, my dad was teaching me how to isolate a building with a heavy machine gun and flank it. Right. So I've been playing war games for as long as I've been alive.
Wow. So I think this is you have now just made this a proper Gator's Garage podcast, in that you have mentioned my favorite game, Squad Leader. So there we go. I can almost always squeeze out a reference somewhere. It was my number 2. It was the second game I learned to play. and I'm still playing Squad Leader and the ASL starter kits today. So that is very cool. I
What was
like
your
it.
first game?
Midway.
Oh yeah,
As far as as far as the
Mhm.
Avalon Hill, I mean, before that, I mean, Tank Command, chess, the old Heritage Series Broadside game. Me and my dad played the heck out of that. So yeah, I've been wargaming for a long time. Wow, that's fantastic. So
Yep.
you got your first early success in '06. I think that was when I first started seeing you on the internet, and I'm like, this is a really interesting world. And to be honest, I was tight on funds, so every time I thought to do Quor, I was like, oh, I got to buy 2 armies because you got to buy 2 because you're gonna have to recruit your friends.
Yep, for
But
sure.
I really watched it, and I spent hours looking at your lore. Tip of the hat to you for making the rules available for free. Were your original core rules were they based on anything? Were they inspired by any particular game system, or did you guys just kind of sit down whole cloth and say, okay, we're going to do our thing?
I think if you had told me that, so this Quars War is it's complicated decisions with simple mechanics, and if you'd have told
Right.
me that would be my first miniatures game, I would have laughed at you because I'm all squad leader. I'm all about crunch and detail and simulation. I think Anthony would probably say the same thing. So this Quars War, I still think it's a really great game. We're going to re-release it next year with
Yes.
use of the plastics. But it is not what we set out to build it. It's where we ended up, and we were super happy with it. So it's
There you go.
totally its own thing. There's some
Like
mechanics
it.
in there that I don't think have really been used anywhere else. Maybe they have since. But no, it's a different thing. And then the current skirmish game, Clash of Rifles, is more along the lines of a thing that I would have think that I would come up with. I mean, obviously I did, but it's a little
Got it.
crunchier. It's a little more
Yep.
simulation. I think when I game, I prefer more of a simulation than a game.
I understand. One of the first things I noticed in playing this Quor's War was you felt like you were in a video game
Right,
because your guys are never static.
right.
They're not just things are not just happening to your figures. Your figures are able to respond to the situation around them. And tip of the hat to you, Josh. That was an awesome mechanic. I think it's had a lot to do between the very whimsical nature of the figures, but also the very seriousness of the game rules, for lack of a better term.
Right.
It's a breath of fresh air in a miniature game hobby that's been dominated predominantly by I go, you go, or totally random.
Yeah.
And it's first class.
I appreciate that. We worked very hard to kind of capture a more cinematic feel.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah.
Something that feels a little more narrative, that we're telling a story as we go and not a game. And the our goal is always that the rules of the game don't get in the way, right? Like the thing
Right.
you want to do there, you can do it because the rules allow it, right? You're never like, oh, the
Yeah.
rules don't let me do that.
Yeah. I mean, when I sat down and what was elegant is just how small this, especially the cores, this cores war Clash of Rifles, how small the rule book was and how much you could do with it. I mean,
Right,
I think we're on the third addendum now where you kind of flesh certain things out.
right.
But I think everybody's approached that with a good spirit. And the fact that you've made the updates available at no charge has been a very good stewardship of the community. We appreciate that, but still remains a game that has a lot of cinematography to it, is absolutely scalable. When I show it at shows, I'll go as small as 6 core on the table to as many on a side to 12 on a side. I
Right.
actually played a 4-player game at my last con, and it was the first time I had tried that, but I did the full 12 core on each side, and it worked better than I thought it would. And so you can do multiplayer with it, especially if you split up the leaders. So good job on that indeed. So
Thanks.
we got where you came from. You're just very deep lore. Boy, you took the lore so deep. What inspired that? Just went back and looked at your childhood notes, or just you'd sit down
Uh,
and kind of just step into Allwood and away you go.
yeah, actually, it's changed quite a bit from when I was a child. I mean, I've talked about this before, but it's good to know. When I first started drawing them and writing about them, they were sci-fi. So they had spaceships and laser weapons and probably
Okay.
railgun. And they would fight everything. When I was drawing them, they would fight everything. World War II Germans, stormtroopers, Jawas, whatever it may be. And I started Zombiesmith, and as one could guess, the first miniatures we started making were zombies, because it was like 2001 or 2002, nobody made modern zombie miniatures around that time. Games Workshop made some zombies, but they were fantasy. They were for fantasy, so they had like pitchforks and things. And so I thought, how hard could it be to make miniatures? Turns out it's kind of hard, but we did it. And after a while, like, that was a lot of fun. We're like, what do we do next? And so I started mining my childhood, because I was like, I had all these cool ideas when I was a kid. I was a genius kid. Must have been a genius kid. Let's go back and see what I came up with. And I came across the Quar, and I started doodling them again. And I had a friend that I worked with, Sequoia Blankenship, who did a lot of the early art. And we were working on it, and he had this idea one day of, what if it was they were a single race sci-fi on their planet with like 19 teens and 1920s level of technology. And he had a little sketch. I'm like, holy crap, that's it. And so that was probably like 2003 or 2004. They went from sci-fi to World War I or 1920s. And so all the planets I had named and everything as a kid became countries on the planet and all that. So I kind of condensed all the galaxy-wide stuff down to like a single continent and started going from there. So I had, like, most of what I had written as a kid was not really usable, except for that they fought all the time. And they were way into snacks and a bunch of other things. And so that has survived. But a lot of the history, I just started writing. I mean, these are art books, but over here there's a ton of military history books, and on the shelves you can't see are more military history books. So I've always been into reading military history. And so I thought I would take a stab at writing for a world as if it were true and had hundreds of years of history that would inform the now.
Excellent.
And so that's what I've been working on, is just like the whole thing, go back a couple centuries to figure out the countries that don't get along and why, and all this other stuff, and go from there. So I like writing it and doing the history almost as much as I like sculpting it or drawing it.
That is fantastic. It shows in the depth of lore. Honestly, it shows in how the figures look. I mean, they really have a lot of character. Interestingly enough, I've seen people take Quors figures and use them with the one-page rules. Somebody said, I'm getting these to use with one-page rules, and I'm like, cool. You're playing with the figures and having fun. That's a win.
I look at it like I created, say, World War II, and there are lots of different ways to play World War II and lots of different systems.
You bet.
And so for me, I'm creating Allwood in 1783, and providing you with the models and the history, and how you play in that world is totally up to you. So if you use a different game system, I really don't mind.
I like it. Yeah, I've been showing it in some of the science fiction groups and some of the fantasy groups. As I've built them, I know my wife and I. One of the things I have noticed, I mentioned my wife. I've noticed a number of comments about guys doing this with their daughters and their wives.
Yep.
The ladies.
Yeah, I was gonna say that's always been a satisfying thing to me when I was doing conventions. Is there are lots of parents with their children that were like, we can buy these and we can play these. These are safe. They're not covered in skulls and spikes and everything else. Also, a lot of spouses and girlfriends have come in. I've also seen girls get their boyfriends into it too. So
sure.
Yeah, that's always been great. What I've had a lot of with the starter set that's pictured behind you is a lot of first-time gamers as well that saw it, have never built miniatures, and have showed up because they're intrigued by the whole thing.
Yeah, I've caught some of that flavor too. Hey, this is my first miniature game. It's my first war game, and we're always like, hey, welcome to the team. It's just again, it's one of the things. I know as a person in the hobby, I'm real grateful for it. I know I've looked around at throwing my Quar. They will probably make their way as a crew in my Stargrave.
Perfect.
Because it would be just absolutely awesome, or even maybe as some of the bad guys. So For those that are not closely familiar, the Quor are 228, so you can roster them with just about any 28 millimeter figures. I also like, Josh, and I guess this is more of a Wargames Atlantic thing, maybe you, but the very heft and chunk of the figures is, and I might even have some here, is relatively unique. You don't have figures that are so easy to break. You know, the guns don't necessarily snap off easy. Let me see if I can get this out here. I think this is a command team here. Now, these are resin, and sometimes with the background, it doesn't always show so easy. But yeah, I know. I was telling my wife, I don't even mind my daughter handling these because they're so big. They're solid. You look at this figure here. I mean, yeah, he's got bits. If you work at it, you can break it. But you know, there's a mace and there's looks like a two-handed pistol. So this is a Crusader, but these aren't going to come off easy. And I think for any gamers, but especially younger gamers, that's brilliant. It's a good fit, and tip of the hat to you.
Thank you. Yeah, that was my goal, is to make them.
Yeah.
If you look at the old medals that we were doing in 2006, they were a little more realistically proportioned, whatever that means for a Quar, realistic.
Sure.
But I made a conscious effort with the 15s that came out during COVID and now the 28s to make them a little more cartoony, a little more whimsical, a little more appealing across ages and styles and that sort of thing. So that's a conscious decision on our part.
Good point. Good job. Good job. Like I say, it has literally taken the hobby by storm. It was been quite a hoot. I think everybody involved was like, wow. But I think the hobby was ready for something that was both whimsical without being too silly, and certainly for just a different type of miniature game. So again, tip of the hat to you and the folks at Wargames Atlantic. What a wonderful partnership. How did you get hooked in with Wargames Atlantic?
Hudson contacted me, and I apologize for the dogs in the background. Hudson, I think we're going to be okay. Hudson contacted me. I don't remember when, and said, "Hey, do you want to make hard plastic Quar?" And I said, "Hey, yes, but I don't know how to sculpt for hard plastic Quar." He's like, "No problem, we'll help you." And so here we are. So yeah, Hudson out of the blue. I'd been a fan of the Quar for a while, back when they were metal, and had seen some of the 15s, and Wargames Atlantic at that point was starting to grow and become more popular. So I think he was, I don't know, always been a fan, or was looking for some stuff to license that already had sort of a following to bring some customers over to Wargames Atlantic. Whatever the reason was, it's worked out great. And I think it's done better than I expected. I think it's done better than he expected, which is why it's churning out now. Like, there's 2 sets a month the past couple months, and we've got almost that for probably the rest of the year at least.
Yeah, 2 sets a month, and that is amazing. I mean, and the folks are they're very faithful. As the new stuff is coming out, they're picking it up, and I know it's been good for my business as well. I'm a relatively new store. I'm in my 5th year, my first year really doing it full time. Nice. And number one selling product, number 1 through 3, is the Quar, hands down. Folks have just really been faithful to support us, and I'm real grateful for that. So you mentioned that kind of takes us over to the next thing. You talked about the kind of how you got into Wargames Atlantic and where you are. And so for the future, about 2 kits a month coming out from Wargames Atlantic.
Yeah, that's the goal.
Right.
There will be, if there's a month there's not 2 kits, it's just because there's something else major, like Baron's War just landed, in the pipeline, or we're both small business. Wargames Atlantic is also a small business. Sorry, you're going to say something about Baron's War?
I was going to say Baron's War has plugged the pipeline, but that's a whole other discussion.
Yeah. Totally fine. It's a great product, so that's totally fine.
Yes.
The plan absolutely is 2 a month, at least for the rest of the year. And if there's a month that is a little different, it's not because anything is wrong. It's just logistics.
Fantastic.
I will say, you mentioned earlier about having the starter up for free and doing all the addendums, which will of course continue. But I will say here, people know it's coming, that the new PDF of full rules, we've been working, as we've been doing addendums, we've been rewriting and tweaking the full rules. So a new starter version size thing of the PDF should be out before the end of this month. So that'll roll everything back into one rule book, so you don't need your starter book and the addendums. There'll be a new PDF, and then this summer will be a new Clash of Rifles starter set with 2 new factions and a printed new book.
That is going to be absolutely awesome. I will tell you the Fidwog have been very popular. I know I bundled the Fidwog together as a starter with the Fidwog army and the 2 blisters, and people have just snapped it up. One of the the other thing that I like about Wargames Atlantic, and I like about Wargames Atlantic is the price point on their stuff is usually pretty reasonable, and the Quors War has just carried that out. Now, while Wargames Atlantic continues to, of course, to grow their side of the core universe, you're going to continue also to do your own stuff in resin as well, right?
Yep. So besides the 2 kits a month from Wargames Atlantic, I've been releasing 3 or 4 kits in resin on zombiesmith.com. So new troop types, lots of vehicles. We haven't yet gotten to vehicles at Wargames Atlantic, although they're in the pipeline. Maybe next month will be the first vehicles in June. So I've been putting out a lot of stuff, and I know people can't keep up with it, but I'm trying to get, there was the selection of metal models was massive. There were several hundred different models in the metals, and I'm trying to just get back to that point quickly to get a bunch of like factions fleshed out and playable, because again, sometime next year we would like to re-release the mass battle rules that have been updated with the new activation system and all that. And so you're going to need armies to play, which means you need a wide range of models for every faction. So I've been working hard to get that done.
Fantastic. Yeah, I think and I really, again, like the way it's been released so far, and I hope we kind of continue in this vein. I like the skirmish level of the Quors War. I think that's been a huge part of its success. Anybody who's really kind of watching the miniature market right now will tell you that skirmish gaming is absolutely like the sweet spot. And that was another thing that attracted me when Wargames Atlantic asked me to carry the product. They're like, it's a man on man, or in this case, a Quar on Quar skirmish game where it's individual figures. And I'm like, absolutely. At 28 mil, I think 28 mil shines the most when it's at skirmish. And I will tell you that, like Wargames Atlantic came out with a 24 Quar or 24 Quar box. And that hasn't done well so much, but I've been able to sell it by the sprue so people could add on to their smaller boxes. So the skirmish element, and I hope going forward that the Wargames Atlantic keeps that in play, because it does make a fantastic introduction.
I don't think I agree with that. It's a great acquisition project, as Anthony, he used to run a game store, would call it. It's great. Like, here, this is all you need. It's got the dice, it's got the models. Like, just go get some glue and some paint. That's not going away. And even though I'm working towards mass battle next year, the skirmish will always be here, will always be supported. We've already got plans for some expansion books, like theater books and campaign system for the skirmish. I think one of the reasons to do mass battle is, well, we are a business and we like selling models, right? And so if you need but also there are so many people, and I appreciate this, that already own hundreds of the new Quar, right? They buy all of them, and it'd be great if they have something to get all those on the table. Like, if you're gonna buy 200 Quar and paint them all up, I should give you something so that you can go out and play those Quar. I mean, people use like Xenos Rampant and a bunch of other stuff that's great, but I also want to give or put my own thing out there.
Exactly. Well, and it's every gamer likes to put, most or all of his collection of XYZ on the table. I was an early adapter of the Lord of the Rings skirmish game. Bought literally the first set that came out. Was actually pleasantly surprised at the price point. But I followed that for a long time, and eventually got into War of the Rings, which was mass battles, and it's a different flavor and a different story, if you will. But man, if when it's done right, and I know we will, it creates literally a whole new level of experience, if I can put it that way. So looking forward to it. I know I put the core on the table as often as I can, and I think it's going to give people even more of an excuse to build out their armies. And hey, we got to have something to do with all these tractors that are coming out.
Well, that's what I was going to say. The other thing that Mash Battle does is allow you to get toys on the table that don't make sense in Skirmish, like maybe aircraft and artillery. Yeah. I mean, artillery, I guess, in Skirmish is a good objective thing, but not necessarily an actual playable piece. So that's the other great thing about Mass Battle, is we can kind of expand the types of models that we put out to give more depth to the world.
Yes, and that's going to be absolutely awesome. Absolutely awesome. Wow. So, we've got again. Looks like the future is bright for all three companies. Zombiesmith and Gator and Wargames Atlantic. While we're talking Zombiesmith, now you guys do more than just the Quar too, right?
We do. Everything but the Quor is on a little bit of a break, just because nobody has the time. Right. I can't just do one thing. So I've done a bunch of Sci-Fi miniatures, which are in Project Ah, and War of Ashes, which is like Muppet Vikings. So I've done a bunch of that. I'd love to revisit it sometime. There's a bunch of stuff in the background that I could release for
Excellent.
those. Just haven't had the time. There are things in motion to give me more time. Like, I'm not shipping all the orders and all that other stuff. I'm trying to parse that stuff out so that I've got more time to just kind of create, which is a better use of my time, probably. I mean, not that I'm so special, but I'm the one creating it. And so if I spend 4 hours a day shipping orders, then that's 4 hours less per day. So there's other stuff we do that I would love to get back to. There's a bunch of stuff that is half finished that one day I would like to get back to, and some new stuff that we've got ideas for.
That is fantastic.
That is fantastic.
Wow. Okay. This has been great. I just before we wrap. Oh, I know what I wanted to talk about. The one more thing. So you did a computer game.
Yes.
I guess that was one of the first things you did. I guess pre-Quar. And any thoughts of ever bringing that back into publication?
Yeah, it was actually like 2015 or 16. So it was before the Wargames Atlantic deal, but definitely metalcore was going strong back then. Not heavy metal. Yeah. So yeah, I started a video game company, and then a bunch of my coworkers joined me. And we were doing mobile games, and then we got the opportunity to do a VR game as VR was just coming out.
Oh wow!
So we did. So the first Quar game started as a VR game on PC for like Vive and all that, so you can still play it. It's on Steam. And then we hired another company to port it to PlayStation VR, and then they actually also made a PlayStation version of it without VR. So it's still out there. It's still playable. It is more than 10 years old at this point, so it shows a little bit of its age. It is older, and it was the early days of VR. So things are a little clunky because the hardware was new and the tools to program for it were new. But yeah, I consciously left the video game industry to do the board game industry full time, and until just like 2 years ago, Zombiesmith was always like in the nooks and crannies of my life. Like when I had time, I would get to it, and I purposely had to keep it small because I had a day job or a company I was running other than Zombiesmith. But now it's my full-time job. So I left the video game industry, but I still have the desire to make video games. So I wouldn't rule it out. I definitely have an idea of the first thing I would do.
Nice.
I would just need the time to do it. I have the resources, so I would just need the time to get it done.
See, we got to get the day-to-day off your plate, so we can let people that are better suited for that do that, and let you be focused on the creatives. And I know exactly what you mean. I'm an accountant by trade, but one thing running Gator Games and Books has given me an opportunity to do is give very much free range to my creative side.
Yeah.
And it's been really refreshing. Been a much needed break. So I can totally relate to that part of things. Well, folks, again, Josh, thank you so much for your time. I know as busy as you are. Any other things you want to share with the folks before we wrap up?
I'll say what I've been saying in these interviews. I'm appreciative. I'm thankful for everyone and everyone's interest and enthusiasm and putting up with me and my slowness and sometimes being behind and trying to do too much at once. Most everybody's been great about it, and the ones that have not been great about it, I totally get it, and I don't hold it against you. I know it's me, and so yeah. So I'm thankful for everybody and the ability you've given me to do this as a full-time job.
Fantastic. Well, there you have it, folks. The awesome Joshua Qualtieri, certainly a rising star in the hobby, and this Quors War, a rising star in the game community. If you've not had a chance to check out this Quors War, you can check it out at Gator Games and Books wayx.com, or you can look it up on YouTube. There's probably 100 or two well done videos that describe the Quors War, and as we noted here, all the lore is available pretty much for free at the Zombiesmith website, zombiesmith.com, right? I'll put a link to that site in the description below. Folks, thank you for your time. I hope you found this interesting and entertaining. A little bit something different. Nice break from some of the bolt action content we've been running heavy on here lately. As always, give us a like, give us a share, subscribe to the channel, and as you notice, this is thirsty work. There we go. There's my glass. Yep, thirsty work. So buy us a coffee on Ko-Fi. There we go. Buy us a coffee on Patreon. That helps keep us going. Best way to support the channel and support what both of us are doing is to buy some merch from us. So head on over, check it out. If you got any questions, feel free to drop us a line. If you got any comments, please drop them in the section below. If it's something for Josh, I'll tap him and he'll get you an answer. And of course, if it's for Gator Games, I'm always keeping an eye on the threads. And with that being said, y'all have a good night till next time.
See you, everyone.